With Ukraine swiftly recapturing territory in its northeastern flank from Russia, the separatist leaders of the Moscow-controlled Luhansk and Donetsk regions said Tuesday they're planning to hold votes starting later this week for the territories to declare themselves formally part of Russia. Associated Press correspondent Charles de Ledesma has details.
The concerted and quickening Kremlin-backed efforts to swallow up 4 regions could set the stage for Moscow to escalate the war against Ukrainian forces successfully battling to wrest back territory. The announcements of referendums starting on Friday in the Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson and partly Russian-controlled Zaporizhia regions come after a close ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin says votes are needed as Moscow loses ground in the war that began nearly 7 months ago. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
The New York Times reports millions of windows in Ukraine are estimated to have been broken by artillery blasts and other at the end of February. As fall and winter approach, the shattered glass is creating yet another problem for Ukrainians, how to patch up their homes and other buildings to keep out of the cold. Monday, the shockwaves from a powerful Russian missile that exploded more than 800 feet from a nuclear power plant in southern Ukraine blew out more than 100 of the plant's windows. The New York Times reports even before the Russian invasion in February, Ukraine had glass issues. One of the biggest glass factories was in eastern Donbas region, but was bombed during the pro-Russian rebellion there a few years ago and shut down. People have resorted to using plywood and even plastic wrap used to cover food to cover some broken windows. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres opened the annual United Nations General Assembly meeting Tuesday in New York with a grim assessment of the current state of the world. Speaking at the first in-person gathering of world leaders in 3 years at UN headquarters, Guterres said the global community is facing a myriad of problems, from climate change to hunger, yet appears unable to act.
Our world is in peril and paralyzed. Geopolitical divides are undermining the work of the Security Council, undermining international law, undermining trust and people's faith in democratic institutions, undermining all forms of international cooperation. We cannot go on like this.
Guterres made sure to emphasize that hope remains, but his remarks reflected a tense and worried world. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the UN held entirely virtual meetings in 2020 and a hybrid meeting last year. This week, the halls of the United Nations are once again filled with delegates from all over the world. But all delegates are still required to wear masks except when speaking as a precaution against COVID-19. Iranians gathered in multiple cities to protest the treatment of a 22-year-old Mahsa Amini who died last week, days after she was detained by the country's morality police for violating the dress code. Demonstrations drew crowds in Tehran, Mashhad, and Esfahan, as well as cities in the Kurdish areas of western Iran, including Yerevan, Davidera, and Amina's hometown of Sagaz. Protesters chanted slogans and in some areas blocked streets as they called for justice for Amini. Demonstrators in Toronto, Canada, held up pictures of Amini along with a sign that said, "How many more lives?" Amini was detained September 13th in Tehran, and authorities announced her death 3 days later. Police denied Amini was mistreated, saying she died of a heart attack. Her family said she had no history of heart problems. Authorities in southeastern Australia Tuesday reported at least 14 sperm whale carcasses were found along a beach of Australia's King Island. A spokesperson for Australia's Department of Natural Resources and Environment said the whale carcasses were all young males and already dead when they were first reported late Monday. Experts have been dispatched to the island to investigate the stranding. Local Australian media report authorities are currently looking into how to remove the bodies of the whales, but they may have to be left to decompose naturally since the surrounding rocky environment may hamper access of vehicles to tow the carcasses away. Media reports say similar whale strandings have been reported along the shores of King Island in the past, although the exact reason behind the strandings remains unknown. Repeating the hour's top story, separatist leaders of the Moscow-controlled Luhansk and Donetsk region said Tuesday they're planning to hold votes starting late this week for the territories to declare themselves part of Russia.
Hi, thank you for watching. I hope the videos are useful for you. Please subscribe to my channel using the button below.